The YouTube algorithm has seemingly worked its magic, and for whatever reason, the video I made last fall about the 3DS and why 2020 is a great time to own one is now being recommended to all sorts of people, and with that comes lots of comments on the video with different questions about the 3DS, and I've tried to answer some of those, but I haven't gotten to all of them, so I thought maybe it'd be easier to make a video covering 6 different things that I think you should know before you buy a 3DS in 2020 with the intention, assumably, of modding it, because why wouldn't you? Because the first comment I was getting that I wanted to respond to was that all 3DSs are actually now moddable. I did not mention that in the video that I made last fall, but that is the truth now. I'll have a video linked from about 2 months ago down in the description that will have some instructions on how to get your 3DS modded regardless of what system it is, regardless of what firmware it's on. They're all able to be modded now with an SD card, real quick and simple. So what do you get once you have the 3DS modded? Well, you're able to play backup copies of games, which isn't so important yet because obviously this is usually tied to piracy, but down the road when the 3DS doesn't have an online store to function anymore, the physical games become more scarce, you'll see this ultimately become one of the sole ways people actually play games on the system, and that's exactly what happened with the Wii and the WiiWare software. Now, of course, you also get access to other homebrew applications. Primarily, these are going to be emulators. The 3DS is capable of playing Game Boy Advance games. However, that's only when the system is modded, and you'll need to set those up yourself, as they aren't available on the Nintendo eShop. And then, of course, there's different editors that you can use if you want to edit your save files or back up your save files. This is normally done particularly for Pokemon. So when I played Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire, I was modding some of the Pokemon post-game, changing the IVs. I know some people want to, hunt for Pokemon for hours to get some ones with great IVs, but after I was done, I'd finished the campaign. I was kind of playing around with modifying some of the IVs and movesets of the Pokemon afterwards using an editor application in the 3DS. So all that stuff is really cool, and you can do it with a modded 3DS. Now, other people were asking about how big of a micro SD card you should buy. I know I saw some people recommend 16 gigabytes. I saw people recommend as much as having 256 personally, and in my opinion, I use a 32 gigabyte SD card. That's holding about 20 games for me. I still got plenty of space left. I think 32 gigabytes is a great place to look in terms of the value you're going to get for the price, and as much as the fact that most 3DS games are around a gigabyte in size, maybe less. At most, they could be 2 gigabytes. And the only game that comes to mind that really pushes that limit is Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon. So beyond that, there aren't that many games that are really on that top tier end of the size spectrum. So figure probably 1 gigabyte per game. And the third thing a lot of people were discussing was the condition of the systems you purchase. People got the impression from the video, because I mentioned it, that you could buy the systems new in stores. And at least in my area here in Minnesota, I can still find the new 2DS, in stores, brand new, like $130 or something, just sitting on the shelf at Walmart or Target. But it sounds like in other areas, maybe these are even other countries, the system has been basically discontinued to the point where they aren't really appearing in retailers anymore. But I wouldn't recommend anyone purchase a new 3DS or 2DS. I'd recommend you try and take a look, at the Facebook Marketplace, Craigslist, see if you can pick one up used. Even on eBay, prices aren't necessarily bad, because I think what you'll find is they're either going to be in extremely awful condition because they were owned by a kid, or you'll find that they're actually in really good condition. I found a lot of 3DSs and 2DSs that are in fantastic condition because people bought them, they were nostalgic about it, and ultimately, as much as they thought they were going to play a Nintendo game for the first time in 10 years, they didn't actually do it, and the systems have hardly been used. And I see all kinds of them in my area on Facebook where people are just trying to desperately get rid of them because they never played them, and maybe they never modded them probably either, so they didn't get the full experience of the console that you can get if you go ahead and do that. And then people debated if the 2DS was even worth recommending. The original 2DS, the slab of plastic that is the 2DS, that flat tablet shape, and most people hate it, most people don't like it, wouldn't recommend it, but I did see people defending the 2DS, saying that they thought it fit their hands really well because they had bigger hands. and they weren't really missing out on the foldability being lacking. And people compared it even to the Game Boy Advance, that having that larger, flat, unfolding form factor is comparable to the Game Boy Advance. I don't really agree. I think it's too big to be comparable to the Game Boy Advance. But regardless, the fourth debate was really, is the 2DS, the original one, which you can pick up very cheap used, is that worth getting? And I think, if you don't want to spend the money on a more expensive one and you don't care about the portability of it, I'd say go right ahead. There's no problem with that. It's going to be the same overall experience. But the fifth thing to cover here is actually a group of people that said you should absolutely not buy the 2DS, not because of its terrible form factor, but because of the fact that all 2DS models, even the one that folds in half, lack the 3D functionality, the ability to see the graphics in 3D. Some people are huge defenders of this. They're really passionate about the 3D functionality in the 3DS. I, however, can confidently say I have not turned the 3D function on my 3DS probably since the first week that I owned it, which was probably in 2014, I want to say. So it's been years since my 3D function has actually been used in my 3DS. I think that's the case for most people. I don't think many people are actually using the 3D function on the system, especially as 3D technology as a whole has kind of moved on. I think it was kind of a fad, the whole owning a 3D TV in your home. I understand people are still going to 3D movies with the whole glasses deal, but as far as using it on a handheld system, I think that's kind of a fad and something that a lot of people maybe aren't necessarily looking for anymore. So I would say the best one out of the bunch you could really buy in terms of features and value is going to be the foldable new 2DS XL. I would always recommend the XL versions if you have the money to spend, so you don't end up with the little regular 3DS like I have, which, though having a small form factor, being very portable, I do think is a little bit on the small side. And then the final thing, the claims that, I'll just play 3DS games on an emulator on my phone. I don't really like that idea. I think if you actually take the time to try that, it's a very poor experience. For one, the 3DS emulator on your phone doesn't necessarily run the greatest yet. It's still getting there. And two, it's just really hard to play a dual-screened game on a vertical screen on your phone while also having the buttons overlapped on one of the screens, because, of course, the touchscreen buttons are going to appear on top of the screen, so you're covering up one of the screens as your thumbs are pressing the virtual buttons. It's just such a hassle. I don't recommend it to anybody that you try and emulate a DS or a 3DS. Emulate the PSP. I think that that's worthwhile because I think that its form factor lends itself better to being displayed on a touchscreen with the buttons overlapping. But this two-screen deal, I think, is just way too complicated, at least for me personally, to emulate. And I would suggest that if you have the money to purchase one of these systems used, go ahead and do it, and I think you'll get a fantastic experience out of it. Thank you guys for watching. I'm Bailey, and I will see you in the next video.